Welcome to Cardboard Content, where we aim to develop our skills and grow the competitive Commander community. Hey guys, it's me, Benedict. Welcome back. Happy New Year to everyone. I had a small Commander Cube event for my birthday. It was super fun. We had some bounties, played some Planar Chaos. Thank you to everyone who showed up. It was very fun. While we did it at my local LGS, we also recorded a few games, which you're about to enjoy right here. Starting in the lower left-hand corner, we have me on Kenrith, starting hand of 7. Next, we have Josh on Tivit, also with a starting hand of 7. We have Brad, also with a hand of 7, playing Jhoira. And then we have Ben, playing Dargo Francisco with a starting hand of 5. I start us off with a Windswept Heath, pass to Josh. Josh plays City of Brass, and then passes to Brad. On Brad's turn, he plays Volcanic Island into a Springleaf Drum, passes to Ben. Ben plays Mutavault. On his end step, I crack my Windswept Heath and grab a Tundra, and then passes to me. On my turn, I play Mana Confluence, cast Demonic Tutor, and pass the turn to Josh. Josh plays Aspire of Industry for a Soul Ring, and then passes to Brad. On Brad's turn, Brad plays Island. He casts Ethereum Sculptor, and then passes to Ben. Ben bolts in a Bogart Bog, then casts his Commander Francisco, and then passes turn to me. On my turn, I play Bayou, and then pass the turn to Josh. Josh plays Academy Ruins into a Smothering Tithe, then passes to Brad. Josh's Smothering Tithe triggers on Brad's draw. Brad plays Ancient Tomb, then casts his commander, Jhoira. He casts Tormod's Crypt, triggers Jhoira. Brad draws, then triggers Smothering Tithe. Then he passes turn to Ben. Smothering Tithe triggers. On Ben's turn, he activates Mutavault and attacks Josh for 2. Triggers Francisco and reveals a Deadeye Tracker. Moving on to Ben's end step, I cast Intuition. Brad responds with a Flusterstorm. And then we go on to my turn. Smothering Tithe triggers again. I play Verdant Catacombs, and then pass the turn to Josh. Josh plays the One Ring, then casts Counterbalance. I respond with a Red Elemental Blast. Then Josh casts Talion and names 2. Move on to Brad's turn. Smothering Tithe triggers again. He casts Cursed Totem, triggering Jhoira and Talion. Brad draws a card, triggers Smothering Tithe. Then Brad plays Imposter Mech, triggering Jhoira and Talion again. Brad draws off a Jhoira, which triggers Smothering Tithe again. Brad copies Talion and chooses 2 as well. Then Brad casts Rhystic Study. I respond by cracking my fetch and getting an Underground Sea, then casting Mystical Tutor, putting a Culling Ritual on top of my deck. We move on to Ben's turn. He draws, triggering Smothering Tithe. Moves into combat, attacks Brad and me, triggers Francisco, revealing a Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Plays a Command Tower, then casts a Rigging Runner. Triggers Rhystic Study, Ben pays. Runner gets a counter, and then it goes to my turn. Smothering Tithe triggers. I play Boseiju. Then on my main phase, I cast Culling Ritual. Triggers Rhystic Study, Brad draws, Josh gets a treasure. Josh responds by cracking all his treasures to make mana. Brad cracks his Tormod's Crypt and gets rid of my graveyard. I cast my commander Kenrith and then pay for Rhystic Study. Then we move on to Josh's turn. Josh takes 1 from the One Ring, casts Mana Vault, triggers Rhystic Study. Brad draws, and Josh gets a treasure from Smothering Tithe. Taps the One Ring and draws 2 cards. Plays Misty Rainforest, then casts his commander Tivit. Triggers Rhystic Study. Brad gets a card. Josh gets a treasure. Brad responds with a Pact of Negation targeting Tivit. Then Josh cracks his Misty Rainforest to grab his Underground Sea, and then casts his Rhystic Study, triggering Brad's Rhystic Study, which triggers Josh's Smothering Tithe. Brad also counters Rhystic Study with his Fierce Guardianship. Josh moves into combat and attacks me with Talion. We move on to Brad's turn. He pays for a Pact of Negation, triggers Smothering Tithe with his draw, then casts Ever-Flowing Chalice. Triggers Jhoira, he draws, and then Josh gets a treasure. Plays a Steam Vents tap, moves into combat, and attacks Josh for 3, and then passes turn to Ben. On his draw step, Smothering Tithe triggers, then he casts his commander, Francisco, which triggers both Talions, Smothering Tithe after the first Talion draw, then Rhystic Study, and then another Smothering Tithe trigger from Brad's Rhystic Study. We move on to my turn. Triggers Smothering Tithe. I move into combat and attack Josh with my commander. On Josh's turn, the One Ring shocks Josh, and on his draw step, he gets pinged for 1 from Mana Vault. Activates the One Ring, then casts Wishclaw Talisman. Brad has 2 triggers, his Rhystic Study and Talion. Then Smothering Tithe triggers. Josh pays for the Rhystic Study, and he gets a treasure with Smothering Tithe. Josh activates the Wishclaw and gives it to Ben. Then he casts Thassa's Oracle. Triggers Talion, Rhystic Study. Brad draws 2. Thassa's resolves. ETB on the stack. Josh casts Demonic Consultation. Triggering Rhystic Study. Josh pays. Then names You're Already Dead, which isn't in his deck. He exiles his whole deck, and then I use Kenrith's ability to make him draw a card. He responds by casting Cyclonic Rift, which triggers Rhystic Study and Talion, which also triggers Smothering Tithe for both the draws. Before Thassa's Oracle ETBs resolves, Josh loses the game. We move on to Brad's turn. He plays Training Center, then plays Dragon Rage Channeler, then casts Enthusiastic Mechanaut, which triggers his Jhoira. He draws a card, then casts Mana Vault, which triggers Jhoira and DRC. Then he casts Gamble, triggering DRC. Surveils a Relic of Legends, then casts Gamble, discarding a Izzet Signet. Then Brad casts Sensei's Divining Top, which is reduced by Enthusiastic Mechanaut and triggers his commander Jhoira, and eventually finds a Isochron Scepter and Dramatic Reversal. With these 2 cards, he nets mana of any color, sculpts the top of his deck, and surveils everything into the graveyard until he finds his card, Thassa's Oracle, and wins the game. Good job, Brad. Congrats, Brad, on the win. Endgame summation. Josh with the One Ring, it's minor but helpful. I personally try to activate it before my draw step after I've taken the damage to get those draws and maybe get a top deck tutor. Unfortunately, reading the board state prior to this Thassa's win attempt, there's many things that you have to look out for. There's Kenrith, like I used, your own Talion, and Esper Sentinel. Basically anything that's going to force you to draw prior to making that winning Thassa resolve. And I'm pretty sure if you knew that interaction, you would have probably casted that Cyclonic Rift prior to casting that Thassa's Oracle. I personally think of it like a kid touching fire or something hot. You hopefully only learn once. If you enjoy this type of commander and want to be featured like these guys, come join us at Darkside. We have another event happening late February, maybe mid-February, around the release of Aether Drift. If you enjoyed this type of content, we have a lot more linked down below. Please like, share, and subscribe. We have all other social medias. And if you want to support the channel like these guys, they're not new to it like this new year. My Patreons, like these tier 2 content consumers, Big Yoda at 12, Marcus at 9, Dylan at 9, Troy at 9, Rodrigo at 5, and Gwendolyn at 3. Moving on to our tier 3 cardboard cutouts, we have Wong at 14, Matt at 13, Albert at 13, and Joyner at 7. Please consider joining us on patreon.com/cardboardcontent. See you next time for more content.